As far as I'm concerned, if you're not in the top 1% of the lifting population and you need to add mass to your physique, regardless if you've been in the gym for years or if you're still a ranked beginner and you want to get to that next level, there's 4 basic splits that are going to serve you best for getting you the most amount of muscle the quickest way possible. The 4 splits that we're going to cover today are: 1, the 3-day full body split done 3 days per week. The upper and lower split, or torso and limbs, done 4 days per week. These 2 splits only have minor differences, so we can lump them together. 3 is the push-pull leg split. 4 is the antagonistic split. And a bonus split, and one that I'm going to touch on, is the hybrid training split. It's an approach that I've used in my own training for years. But if you want to know what's the best split for you, and you want to know how to know, let's get right to that now. Starting with the full body done 3 days per week. With this setup, as the name implies, you're going to train the entire body in one session. And you're going to do that again 2 more times per week, making for a total of 3 full body sessions weekly. Typically, this is done on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. Now, this split will have the highest frequency out of any other training split we mentioned today. And if your goal is to build muscle quickly, a higher frequency training approach is always going to give you more training sessions per year to stimulate muscle and grow. So if you're currently at the stage where you can take advantage of the split and you want to grow as fast as possible, you should definitely take advantage of it. What stage is that? Beginners obviously fit very well into this category, but also guys who are not very strong. This is due to the fact that beginners just don't need a ton of training stimulus in order to grow. And with this setup, you can get away and maximize progress even with just 1 exercise per muscle group, done for about 3 sets. That is plenty to stimulate muscle growth at the beginner stage, especially if you're doing it 3 times per week. And now, because the volume is so low per session, you can recover in just 48 hours and be ready to go again. This allows you to rack up the most effective training volume and improve your lifting skill the quickest and most efficient way possible at this stage. Now, here's the thing. Nobody wants to admit that they're a beginner, and everyone thinks that they're more advanced than they really are. Yes, even you. And in reality, being advanced simply means that you just have to alter your training in such a way that doesn't allow you to produce significant levels of growth in a short period of time. And the fact is that at someone like my stage in the lifting career, I realistically just cannot program full body training effectively. The workouts just take way too long based on my strength levels, my need to warm up more. The amount of time I'd be in the gym, I'd actually be spending more time warming up than actually training. This would push my training sessions to maybe 3+ hours at a time. But if you're a beginner, or you're not very strong, you're not going to need much time to warm up because you're not lifting so heavy on your working sets. At your stage, you also probably don't have as much skill to dig in really deep on those heavy, intense sets. So you're not going to create a huge recovery demand. So if you're at that stage right now where you can milk super high frequency and you can progress on a workout to workout basis, then why would you train any less than every body part 3 times per week? And it's the same thing if you're just not super strong yet, even if you've been in the gym for a while. If you've never spent that time to really build up that strength foundation, you can absolutely benefit from full body training at this stage, even if you're not a beginner in terms of how long you've been training. Because of your strength, you're not going to be in the gym for hours, you're not going to need a ton of warm up, you're not going to be training with super heavy weights. If you can effectively get in full productive full body training sessions in 60 minutes, and you could still add weight to the bar on a weekly basis or maybe even sooner, in my opinion, there's no better split for you right now than full body training. But now, what if you're a bit stronger? Full body training sessions, they're just not as reasonable for you at this stage. Maybe now you're not recovering between sessions, or they're just taking way longer than an hour now. Enter 4-day upper and lower or torso and limb splits. At this stage now we're essentially cutting those sessions in half by either training the upper body only in one session or the torso only in one session, and then coming back the next day and finishing up with legs or finishing up with the limbs. We're going to rest one day and then we're going to repeat both of those for a second time later in the week. This makes for 4 total training sessions weekly, but the full body trained twice in a week. This right here, without changing anything else, that'll cut the session time in half. That'll allow you to keep your training intensity high, but not with training as much volume in one session. It also gives you a bit more recovery by only hitting body parts twice per week as opposed to 3 times in 1 week. Now, this move is not one that produces better results on its own, but rather that lower frequency, it's a necessary evil of getting stronger and more advanced. This is necessary to keep the quality of the session high and your recovery in check as a more advanced, stronger lifter. And I'll tell you what, most guys that think they're at the advanced stages right now can still get a ton out of this split. However, once you're at the stage that you're able to put a ton of effort and intensity into one single session due to how strong you are, doing the full upper body in one session and the full lower body in another session can have its challenges. And usually for most stronger guys, the fact is, whatever you train at the tail end of that session will usually suffer, especially compared to what you trained fresh. That's when we move on to push-pull legs. That's when we start using the antagonistic split, or maybe even a hybrid approach. But now, again, as a necessary evil, if we want to keep the frequency just as high, we're essentially forced to train up to 5 days per week now, since we're splitting the upper body up into 2 sessions with push and pull. Or if we're doing the antagonistic split, chest and back, and shoulders and arms. Now, that extra training day per week is going to increase your recovery demands, especially if your programming is not on point. But regardless, this extra day is a necessary trade-off if your goal in the gym is to keep the quality of work you do high. If you're at this stage and you're a guy who needs to add muscle to your major muscle groups, push-pull legs is definitely up your alley. You have a day where you primarily focus on the chest, then train the shoulders and the triceps. Then you have a day where you primarily train the back, and then hit the traps, the rear delts, and the biceps. Then you have a lower body day. And if you're even more advanced, you can split one of those lower body days up into a quad focus session and the other into a hamstring focus session. While this is still definitely one of the best options if your goal is overall mass, if you do have more specific needs, or maybe let's say you want to focus on the shoulders or the arms, doing an antagonistic split at this stage might be a better option. But regardless which one you choose, the basic principles at this stage would still be to train every body part roughly twice per week, pick the split that trains your weak points while fresh, and also train no more than 5 days per week to maximize recovery. Many people will ask, how is it possible to fit all these things in with a typical split? With this setup, you can still keep the meat and potatoes of the upper and lower split. Let's say you do that on Monday and Tuesday. You take Wednesday off. Now on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, you can train a more isolated and focused push-pull legs. Or you can take an antagonistic split and train upper, lower, off, chest and back, shoulders and arms, legs. Or you can do something like what I run with guys who need a more advanced push-pull leg system. I'll typically do something like Monday, push, Tuesday, pull, Wednesday, legs, Thursday, off, Friday, push. Saturday, we'll do pull again, but with a focus on the whole posterior chain, including the hamstrings. We'll hammer those hip hinges, and we'll also do some lower body work. Bottom line, you can get pretty creative with these splits. But in your case, you always want to choose the one that allows the highest frequency that you can recover from. And as you get stronger and more advanced, you want to incrementally reduce the amount of volume or the amount of exercises you're doing in one single training session. And you want to aim to spread those out more evenly throughout the week. But you want to keep the frequency of work still as high as possible as you continue to get stronger and more advanced. But remember, that slightly lower frequency is a necessary trade-off as you become bigger, stronger, and a more advanced lifter. But if you're not at that level yet, jumping straight to the advanced style of training will actually slow down your progress, since you're still at the stage where you can take advantage of those higher frequencies. So if you want to maximize your progress in the gym, follow this advice as a guideline for picking the right split for you. And if you want the exact training program that I personally recommend to build more muscle using proven old school bodybuilding methods, click the link below to access my old school mass gain training system. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.